Welcome back to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. Quick shout out to David C. and KCC. Thank you for using my Tesla referral link and congratulations on your new Teslas. And real quick, thank you all for your patience this past week. I was dealing with and processing some major unexpected news. I can't say much for now, but just know that my family as well. Thank you all for the prayers. And when the dust settles in the coming weeks, it's looking like I'll have more time for Electrified, which I am quite excited about. I will still be dealing with some things behind the scenes for a bit, and I will share more in time. But again, for now, thank you for understanding. And now back to your regularly scheduled programming. And thankfully, over the past week, the news has been eerily quiet in Tesla land, but Elon has been doubling down on the timeline of Cybercab production starting in April. And today he said congrats to the Tesla team on making the first production Cybercab, sharing the picture that Tesla posted of the first Cybercab off the production line in Austin with hundreds of workers. Naturally, based on the comments of these posts, we have people asking, when's the Cybercab going to be deployed on the Robotaxi network? Well, we need to back up a little bit because let's remember this is still a very early production unit. This first off the line vehicle is going to be validation only, used for testing and calibration of this entirely new assembly process. So yes, it's very exciting that to some degree these new processes for the Cybercab are in place and being used and tested. However, this does not mean Tesla has entered volume or continuous production 2 months ahead of time. This is actually perfectly in line with how Tesla does things. Their first off the line vehicle for the Model 3, the Model Y, the Cybertruck, all of those vehicles had roughly a 3 to 4 month lag from when the first vehicle came off the line to when the first vehicle was actually deployed, meaning it made it into a customer's hands. Now in this case, that's not going to be the outcome, as the first deployment will be onto the Robotaxi network. So the next month and a half to 2 months is going to be Tesla just testing, validating, and yes, technically we can call these production vehicles because they come off the actual production line, but that does not mean that these vehicles will be ready for any type of deployment. And we cannot overlook how Elon has said early production rates for the Cybercab will be agonizingly slow. So of course, per the usual, I'm not trying to be the wet blanket here. I just know that a big portion of people's reaction will be, oh wow, the Cybercab production is 2 months ahead of schedule and volume production is underway. But no, that is not the case. We are actually right on schedule, as Tesla will need at least a month or two to test these new lines, validate the processes and the end results, and continue to line up the supply chain before it enters continuous slow production that does seem ready to start on time in April. And I would assume a few weeks of testing those true production builds before they get deployed on the Robotaxi network in Austin and ultimately become available to hail by the public. But with all of that said, it's a very encouraging milestone, as behind the scenes, this group of people really is working to pull off something revolutionary in the auto manufacturing sector, changes that we literally have not seen in the world now for decades. So hopefully in time, Tesla will give us glimpses into what they actually have going on to bring this vehicle to life. Another key development at Tesla, hopefully some of you remember the importance of February for Tesla's supervised FSD approval from the RDW, the Dutch Vehicle Authority, because this is the month where that organization is evaluating Tesla's FSD software to determine if it gives it approval or not. This would be under that Article 39 national exemption, specifically for innovative vehicle technology. So the Netherlands has the opportunity to grant an approval to supervised FSD, and if they do, that approval can be mutually recognized by other countries, which could go a long way in accelerating a broader rollout of supervised FSD across the EU. And you may remember the drama from last year. Tesla said on X that the RDW has already committed to granting Netherlands national approval in February of this year. But the RDW quickly responded by saying, no, 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 that's inaccurate. It's only a demo slot and approval remains to be seen. We don't have anything official yet, but I was able to find this from Rustavi. He said, good vibes from Tesla Utrecht. I visited Tesla Utrecht today. I was told RDW testing FSD hard on a closed circuit and on public roads with their people and Tesla engineers. The target is a green light by the end of February, but there's no guarantees. Then no more Tesla safety driver would be needed for the ride-alongs. Because of course, if it gets approved, Tesla wouldn't need to offer these ride-alongs anymore, as all customers with Tesla vehicles would finally be able to experience supervised FSD on their own. Now, whether it starts with AI 4 or hardware 3 is TBD, but you get the point. And just to clarify, I know the post said no more Tesla safety driver is needed. Of course, this is still supervised FSD, so customers would be the supervisor. What the post was referring to was that these Tesla employees in these ride-alongs would no longer be needed because the role of supervision would be transferred to the Tesla customer. But again, to be clear, this is not approval for unsupervised FSD. The good news is Tesla is carrying out testing of supervised FSD across multiple different EU countries. And as far as we've seen, the demo drives with Tesla employees have not been perfect, but overall they have been very, very solid. So I'm obviously not a regulator, but based on what I've seen, you would think that would be enough to at least give these people supervised FSD. Again, it's not like Tesla's asking for unsupervised here. So if the regulators don't grant approval here, even though it may not happen in February, testing is ongoing, maybe they want more time for whatever reason, but at that point, I would have to think that something more nefarious is going on. They're just delaying this technology to try to save their homegrown auto manufacturers, even though most of those automakers have already given up on any path to autonomy, as most of them are now focused on level 2 or level 2++, whatever they want to call it. I found this from a source in the Netherlands. It said Tesla announced Friday that starting February 16th, which was Monday, yesterday, its supervised FSD will be showcased during test drives at select Tesla stores across the Netherlands. A Tesla spokesperson said they expect the RDW, the Netherlands Vehicle Authority, to grant permission soon. Go ahead and add an Elon TM after that one, because he also expressed similar expectations recently at his World Economic Forum interview. But for what it's worth, the RDW had earlier planned to issue a decision in February, but a spokeswoman declined to comment, noting the agency typically does not discuss ongoing approval applications. And given we have less than 2 weeks left in February, personally, I'm setting my expectations to hopefully hear something about this in March. And given the drama that played out last year, where Tesla made that post and encouraged Tesla customers to reach out to the RDW by sending emails, and then they got flooded with the emails, so they came out and said, hey, don't do this. We're only going to approve it if and when the safety is convincing. Your emails have zero bearing on approval. So I think saying there's bad blood between these entities is a bit of a stretch, but this also has not felt like the friendliest of interactions over the past few weeks. So I will certainly keep a close eye on this in the days ahead. Look, I think we all know AI is going to have a profound impact on what Tesla and the Muskonomy at large can achieve, but I feel like I've failed you all in not keeping us informed about the other side of the coin. This one stat alone is pretty insane. From a research report by IBM, 97% of organizations have reported AI-related breaches and lack proper AI access controls. Last year, up to 16% of data breaches involved attackers using AI, usually in phishing and deepfake scams. The numbers are only getting worse, which is why I'm doing what I can to encourage everybody to sign up for Delete Me as soon as possible. No single tool can fully protect you, but Delete Me can remove your family's information from these people search data brokers that often get scraped by these AI hackers. Delete Me is the sponsor of this video, but for my research, they're the best company that does this work, and they're based in America. Look at this list of data brokers that Delete Me covers. It's just crazy that this many data brokers exist to begin with. You will get new quarterly reports showing the status of removal at every data broker, and if you have custom requests, you can submit those as well. I've been using Delete Me for years now, and it saved me thousands of hours from calling these data brokers and requesting removal and following up myself. So if you'd like to support Electrified and protect your family, you can head to joindeleteme.com/electrified to get 20% off using my code Electrified linked below, or by using the QR code on the screen. FSD 14.2.2.5 is now rolling out to early access and beyond. Zach shared his initial review and overall really didn't have anything negative to say, so there's not too much we can take from this. With a small dot release like this, I always think we have to keep our expectations very low. It could really just be working out bugs with no actual noticeable changes other than people trying to perceive things for social media. But the one thing I'm watching closely is navigation issues, and he said on the most recent build, the only place I saw anything wrong with navigation is the Los Angeles airport. He said, I don't see navigation bugs or weird turns here in LA like some owners have been reporting throughout the country. And I'm still on dot 4, but I can confirm I have had some incredibly weird things going on with navigation, stuff I have never seen before. I blurred these a bit so as to not completely dox my location, but in situations where the car should easily just make a left turn or go straight to get to the destination, it's deciding to go the opposite way and then do a U-turn or to take random turns to go around to get to locations. Truly inexplicable as far as I can tell.
Okay, now you're really screwing up. What is this? You are really messing up the nav this time. So you're gonna do a U-turn here? What is going on? The car is 100% ignoring the navigation. What are you doing? It's gonna get on the highway. Oh no, it just took us on the highway. This is awful. What just happened? Oh my gosh, we're gonna need a full reroute. You're gonna mess up my roof cam and everything. This is really bad because there is not a good way to get back. I think this video might be over, guys. What is going on? Let's see, how far away is it? Look how far it has to go. Oh my gosh, well, I think this video is over, everybody. FSD just ruined the whole video.
And on that point, shifting to the Robotaxi network, this was an unsupervised paid customer ride. And this right here alone is enough anecdotal evidence of why Tesla is not scaling faster in Austin.
Dilemma, Robotaxi just down a road it's not supposed to go down. And we can't go here. And they're working on the road. And the guy said, I can't go this way. I just kind of waved him like, I'm not driving, I can't do anything. So I wonder if support is gonna hop in here and try to resolve the issue. The little like problem identified UI isn't showing up here at the top. Oh my gosh. They're waving me forward, but I'm not driving, so I can't do anything. This is a good one, guys. This is a tricky situation that we have gotten ourselves into here. Okay, here we go. We're going. Yay, we're going. We're doing it. We're escaping. Give them a little apologetic wave to these people. Yay, we made it.
All right, sir, please reach back out if you have any other issues.
Okay, thank you.
Have a great ride.
Thank you.
So a lot of heavy machinery around, but I don't think it was ever super dangerous or anything like that. But also at the same time, not really what you would want to see for something ready for prime time. And yes, at some level, we will all have to accept that these vehicles working through edge cases are going to be happening in real time in the real world. And if you've been following along, you should know that Waymo has had dozens of instances like this that get nearly no coverage. And then back to supervised FSD, I saw this over the weekend. This user said FSD handled the situation fine during the day, but it was repeatable at night.
Driveway's up there. Here's the boat ramp. There's a car behind me probably being like, what the heck? All right. I had to stop because the lake's right there, but there you go.
And then we have Gally, a known Tesla bull, but is somebody that I have a lot of respect for, saying this.
This is where I think it falls flat, because on first layer, you get to Austin, you're with all your friends, and it's like, oh my God, we got to take Robotaxi. Only 3 people can fit in a Robotaxi, I think. So smaller than an Uber, which is 4 people. And then I would say about 50% of the time when I tried to call a robotaxi, there was high service demand. So I just literally wasn't able to call a car. So that was, immediately like I wasn't able to use it. Then the other 50% of the time, I would say the wait time was about 15 minutes on average. Sometimes it was 13, sometimes it was 17, sometimes it was 14, sometimes it was 20. But I'm looking at about a 15-minute average wait time for whenever I want to use the Robotaxi app. And at first I was thinking about these numbers like, okay, wait, like why isn't the Robotaxi as good as Uber? Like it's not as reliable. If I am counting on a ride and your friends are yelling at you and you're late for your reservation, then you're not going to use the Robotaxi app's not going to work because you need a car to get there. It can't, it's like, oh, let's try the Robotaxi app. It's going to be sick. And then it's like high service demand. Actually, it doesn't work. So we'll do Uber. So that is the status quo for better or worse. And other examples, like there was a bad Robotaxi ride I got because one time I got a driver picked up with my girlfriend, and the next thing you know, it's like bumping like the windows are down as this Robotaxi comes up, and it's bumping insanely loud podcasts that we're hearing through the windows. So we're like, all right, that's already weird. And then we get in the car, this dude is like leaned back, like he's got his Tesla seat leaned back as far as he can go. He's got his windows down, reeks of smoke in the car. On the front charging panel where your phone should be, we've got a huge vape there, just chilling that he's clearly vaping. And then he's got like his drink up front, I don't know, in a mug or whatever. So, and the car smells horrible. And it's like, he's not leaning his seat back. So my legs are all squished up. Even Tesla hiring all these safety drivers hired one. And I tried to put an ad in or like a feedback in the app that was like, yo, your safety driver's kind of killing the vibe right now. You could tell it's what some like people in Austin are like, oh, you can be a Tesla Robotaxi safety driver. You just sit in the car. It drives itself. You don't even do anything. You can just sit there and vape and like have your seat back and bump your podcast and literally not work but get paid. Like that's what it felt like his mindset was.
And my mind keeps going back to what Ashok said on the Q4 call. By the end of last year, we had a long tail of issues that we were able to churn through. So clearly the focus was on the March of the Nines, working through all of these edge cases just in Austin. Then he said through that, we learned issues with charging and other issues that we would have seen once we scaled the unsupervised fleet. Both are happening in parallel. So on one hand, Tesla is very obviously still working through edge cases. And 2, Tesla is working through some challenges on the infrastructure side, which to me is a bit of a surprise because given the supercharger network and service locations, I would think that Tesla wouldn't have so much trouble given how small the fleet is right now. And then Lars jumped in without being prompted saying we're using our vast network of charging and service centers that really only Tesla has in the space to jumpstart our infrastructure build-out needs. All of that to get ahead of robotaxi autonomous vehicle demand. We expect that because of this network, we're the only company capable of scaling at the rate that's needed for the tsunami of autonomy that has come. So it's been fairly quiet, but we know behind the scenes Tesla is busy with this infrastructure build out for robotaxi and for its rental operations. In Austin, they're hiring for a role, insurance and rental operational controls and process improvement. This role will focus on regulatory requirements, internal policies, and industry standards. If you've ever been involved in a startup, you will be familiar with SOPs and KPIs, standard operating procedures, and key performance indicators. That's an entire part of this business that I think most of us often overlook that Tesla needs to establish early on. And those SOPs need to get built out when you have a robotaxi that ends up in the middle of a construction zone. And the way the car handled that, it didn't seem like the remote operator was controlling the vehicle. It seemed like the software was trying to figure it out on its own. So I'll say this, there's always a chance, whether it's 14.3 or a later build, that's going to be more of this light switch scenario. However, given everything that we've seen so far with the rollout, everything going on right now, the lack of scaling, I just want to be the voice that brings everyone's expectations down because I know there's a portion of the population, the Tesla community, that is still waiting for this light switch moment where Tesla starts scaling to multiple cities at a time and the fleet numbers get into the thousands. And frankly, just looking at the data and evidence we have, it does not seem likely any time in the next few months to me. That doesn't mean we won't see a few new cities in the next few months, but those are going to start as pilots with safety monitors and very small fleet numbers. So hopefully 14.3 is the last big piece of the puzzle like Elon proclaimed. But for me, given the sentiment in the community, it's starting to feel like this rollout is really going to test everyone's patience. And this does no favors for my channel, but there is a world where we have this feeling for the entirety of this year. Meaning there's at least a non-zero chance that Tesla's robotaxi fleet size stays under 5,000 for the whole year. On that point, when it comes to the robotaxi tracker website, the third-party one, do not act as if these numbers are exact, because remember, based on demand and time of day, those numbers are going to change at Tesla, and the Austin number might be relatively close, but the error rate for the Bay Area could be actually quite significant. So for me, these numbers have to be plus or minus 20% in either direction at any time. And don't forget, at the top of the website, it actually shows of those 89 vehicles in Austin, 44 have been inactive for over 30 days, meaning there's only 45 active rider vehicles plus or minus right now in Austin. So my point, this is not going to be great data to use to determine if Elon's prediction of doubling the fleet each month holds true even for the next few months. If for no other reason than Elon said that the fleet was around 500 vehicles between the Bay Area and Austin at the end of January. So for me, I'm completely comfortable saying that Tesla's robotaxi rollout has been a disappointment relative to my expectations. And of course, I'm totally good with Tesla prioritizing safety like they are. Because one headline accident and everything is going to change, especially as the federal regulations for robotaxis are being developed as we speak. But this is a software problem, and it's one that is taking Tesla, I think, even a bit longer than they were expecting, as the team has now said over the past few weeks that the long tail is incredibly long. So long term, everything is being put in place and everything will still look good for Tesla to have a majority of the ride-hail market. And obviously they don't even need 100% of it, but they will have the majority. But the charging infrastructure, the service infrastructure, the rental infrastructure to undercut companies like Hertz, the cleaning infra, and so on. And then it's going to take time to pair all of that with this edge case churn, and I just want all of us to be realistic about what to expect this year unless a new build accelerates things materially, which again is possible, but even that will not change the infrastructure limitations. And a lot of this is probably building the algorithm that handles deploying new cars and charging cars and demand fluctuations and unexpected rerouting. And until Tesla feels like it has a good handle on all of that, the fleet size will stay small and will result in a lack of reliability and long wait times. And given that Tesla could easily deploy more hardware, aka more vehicles, Tesla definitely has some reasons for not doing so. There was an article from Solar Power World that detailed what Tesla's 100 gigawatt new solar factory could look like. And we know production is currently being ramped at the Giga New York factory, but if Tesla's ever going to hit that 100 gigawatt number per year, they're likely to need a new footprint. The article laid out a comparable factory in China. That factory was for roughly 50 gigawatts of annual production, but this Jinko Shanxi facility was cited to cost about $8 billion. That's billion with a B. And of course, Tesla producing things in America is going to cost more than it would in China. But on the positive side, the cost of production equipment has declined significantly since that Chinese factory was costed, and those costs have come down by about 30%. And as we touch on often on the channel, Tesla's scale, this 100 gigawatt order book to build this new supply chain, would give Tesla substantial buying power, giving them leverage over equipment suppliers. And the take takeaway, given the type of facilities required to manufacture everything from raw materials to the end panels, that would encompass advanced clean rooms, utilities, material handling, end-to-end process integration, learning lessons from smaller, less efficient US projects, they have placed the plant and facilities capex for the 100 gigawatt factory at roughly $16 billion. At that scale, much of the engineering, procurement, and construction work would be taken in-house rather than outsourced to third-party contractors, reducing costs significantly. However, those are just upfront costs. When you factor in maintenance and upgrades, that 100 gigawatt project could involve a total capex over 10 years of about $35 billion. All this to say, Tesla's $20 billion expected capex for 2026 was without a new solar factory spend and without any capex spend for the Terafab. So I tried to make this point loudly after Q4, but we now have a good reason to understand why Tesla has been hoarding over $40 billion of cash. Simply put, guys, if Tesla plans to move forward with a Terafab and this new solar factory to hit 100 gigawatts per year, Tesla will very likely need to raise capital at some point in the next few years. Unless we see a material increase in Tesla's free cash flow and profitability over the next 2 years, Tesla will not be able to afford on its own all of these capex plans that have been hinted at. A new solar factory like this for Tesla would likely start production sometime around 2028, and the 45X credit is the most critical financial lever in the model. With phase out of that program starting in 2030 and completely done by 2033, the facility would effectively be racing against the clock. Assuming full eligibility across ingots, wafers, cells, and modules, Tesla's cumulative 45X benefits could approach $20 billion, peaking in 2030 before tapering off. Now, of course, all of this is quite speculative. This entire new facility may not even happen. Tesla might just try to maximize what it has currently in Buffalo. But this is the first time I've seen an industry insider actually walk through what something like this might look like. They said production margins would remain negative through early 2029 as production lines are installed and ramped. The pivotal year is 2030 when gross margins, excluding those 45X production credits, could reach approximately 20%, gradually improving thereafter. And I was encouraged to see that because by my own estimates, I thought that maybe this solar production could reach 30 to 40% profitability with the production tax credits. So again, Tesla would incur serious upfront costs to do all of this in-house. But as has been the case with Tesla, they play the long game, and for the long term, it could absolutely be a lucrative business. And remember, Elon said that solar panels going into space are actually easier to manufacture. And on this point, we just got news that Tesla now employs 2,432 people at its Buffalo Niagara factory, meaning that number is up 373 or about 18% from 1 year ago and well above the 1,560 worker minimum employment target, which of course was set by the state. But so far, much of that growth has nothing to do with solar. And just to keep driving the point home of the scale of Elon's ambition, as it stands, the entire US solar panel capacity is just 65 gigawatts. And the production capacity for solar cells is only a little more than 3 gigawatts. The article said Tesla most recently has focused the Buffalo factory on making superchargers and compiling data for FSD. The Buffalo factory has produced most of the superchargers used at Tesla's charging sites worldwide. And with the rollout of the new true V4 cabinets, this employee headcount expansion is likely focused on that, and perhaps only to a smaller degree for new solar production. Elon said solar will utterly dominate future electricity production. The Davis City Council in California today will weigh whether to adopt a resolution that would end the city's engagement with companies owned or controlled by Elon. And further, they will encourage the California Public Employees Retirement System to divest from those firms. They're saying the proposal comes after members of the public approached the council urging it to divest from companies associated with Elon. I don't think I need to launch into a tirade on what Elon brings to California in terms of economic production through all of his companies. I think we all understand all of that, but the county is now alleging that Elon, through his companies, has engaged in business practices that are alleged to include violations of labor laws, environmental regulations, workplace safety standards, and regulatory non-compliance. Which really just gives me flashbacks to all of the red tape that Tesla has ran into in Germany, with the air quotes environmental groups. And what do you know, a big part of these folks' complaints? Elon's political ideologies. Surprise, surprise. Who knows where this goes, but if adopted, the resolution would bar the city from entering into new contracts or purchase agreements with companies owned or controlled by Elon. I'm not even sharing this because I think it's gonna be some big deal, but to me, because of how insane it sounds. The resolution says, to the extent the city currently contracts with Elon-controlled entities, it shall terminate those agreements where feasible and legally permissible. It would also direct the city to refrain from using Elon-controlled platforms and services, stating it shall prohibit paying for the use of his platforms and services like X and XAI. But the good news, the city does not currently have investments in Elon-controlled companies. Bloomberg is now reporting that Tesla's plan to start supporting CarPlay in its vehicles has been held back by the need for changes in iOS 26 and specifically the Maps app. We know last year there were reports that Tesla started on a plan to bring CarPlay into Tesla vehicles by the end of last year. But that came and went and still no CarPlay. But the word is Tesla continues to plan to add CarPlay, allowing it to run in a window within the current software interface. During testing, Tesla discovered compatibility hitches between Apple Maps and its in-house mapping software. Specifically, the turn-by-turn guidance from Tesla's Maps app did not properly synchronize with Apple Maps during autonomous driving, which could create a confusing experience for most users who could theoretically have both applications open side by side. To address it, Tesla asked Apple to make engineering changes to Maps to improve compatibility. Apple agreed and implemented the adjustments in a bug fix update to iOS 26 and the latest version of CarPlay. But the catch, adoption of iOS 26 has been slower than with previous releases, meaning in Tesla's view, too few users had the updated Maps changes by the end of last year. And they said Apple is trying to make CarPlay more useful by adding support for third-party voice chatbot apps and expanding the premium Ultra version. So take it for what it's worth, but if you're looking for some hopium for CarPlay in a Tesla, there you go. And that article was written by Mark Gurman, who is really widely regarded as one of the most reliable sources for Apple news and for inside information. In Germany, we now have the Grünheide Public Prosecutor's Office investigating IG Metall representatives following a criminal complaint filed by Tesla. The prosecutor's office opened an investigation on Thursday against a representative of the IG Metall union. The individual is being investigated for breach of confidentiality and violation of the Works Constitution Act. The man is accused of secretly making audio recordings with a laptop during a Works Council meeting on Tuesday at Tesla. The prosecutor's office subsequently ordered the data from the laptop to be secured. But naturally, the IG Metall union denies the allegations. The organization is describing Tesla's accusation as an election campaign tactic in the run-up to the Works Council elections next month. And that Works Council election is scheduled to take place from March 2nd to the 4th this year. So this election will determine the new composition of this Works Council. And that's the body that really represents the interests of the roughly 11,000 Giga Berlin employees. They govern things like working conditions, working hours, safety of the factory, social matters, and so on. And it's a big one because IG Metall has been aiming to gain a majority representation to push for improvements like better working conditions, reduced hours, and a new collective bargaining agreement, which we know is something Tesla has strongly resisted. Not because it's abusing workers, Tesla has given pay raises, but because Tesla wants to continue to move with speed. And ordinarily, these votes only happen every 4 years. So certainly something for Giga Berlin to keep an eye on in the weeks ahead. The Information put out an exclusive report today saying that SpaceX is weighing how much stock to reserve for individual investors ahead of what could be the biggest IPO in history. history. The deal could raise around $50 billion at a $1.5 trillion valuation, eclipsing the current record of $29 billion. Including retail allocations at this scale would be a first for a mega IPO. In case you're wondering what the current largest IPO was, it was Saudi Aramco, raising that $29 billion. So not only do we now have rumblings that SpaceX will be trying to set aside some shares for Tesla investors, most likely, but SpaceX is also considering a dual-class share structure in its IPO, and that two-tier structure would give select shareholders stock with extra voting power that would allow them to have more control in decision-making. And certainly the most important part of that move would allow insiders like Elon to maintain control of the company even with a minority stake. SpaceX is also in the process of adding members to its board of directors to help steer the IPO and drive Elon's space ambitions beyond its core rocket and satellite business. Just keep in mind, both when it comes to SpaceX setting aside shares for Tesla investors and this dual-class share structure, all of these deliberations are just ongoing and are very subject to change. However, so far things are tracking based on what our expectations were here, that SpaceX and Tesla would not merge before the SpaceX IPO, and that Elon would do everything in his power to make sure that Tesla investors are taken care of in this SpaceX IPO in a way where they don't have to fight with the big banks. I've already laid out the pros and cons of SpaceX doing that in a prior episode, but right now it still looks like the most likely outcome and the best way to own SpaceX shares as a Tesla investor. And it is true that historically, with IPOs of this scale, retail investors usually get very limited or zero direct access. But clearly, Elon has the bankers and institutional investors right now discussing and debating what an allocation size could look like for individual retail. And today we also learned that PowerLaw Corporation, which is a fund that currently owns stakes in Anduril and SpaceX and some others, is filing to sell shares in New York, giving retail investors a shot at profiting from some of the biggest private companies in AI, defense, and space. This company, which has more than $1.2 billion in AUM, assets under management, disclosed its plans in a regulatory filing, but still needs approval from the SEC. As we know, traditionally with IPOs, all of the big banks profit first, and then after that, the retail investors get whatever's left, buying the shares at much higher prices. But PowerLaw is part of a breed of new vehicles emerging to bridge that gap for so-called mom and pop investors, retail. Their fund is opting for a direct listing, meaning unlike a traditional IPO where the new shares are sold to raise capital, it will sell existing shares by current stockholders. Then once the fund receives approval, investors can buy shares through a brokerage account on the open market, just like buying any other listed stock. So it's certainly not ideal, but if for whatever reason you miss out on the SpaceX IPO and any shares set aside, it's just something I wanted to float out there that you could research more on your own. Its biggest investment is OpenAI, and then SpaceX would be number 2. And again, there's no guarantee they get approval, but just something to keep in mind. But clearly, the demand for this IPO is going to be significant, and we now have official reporting that Tesla investors might actually get priority access. Whole Mars shared the bald MKBHD photo, quote posting the Cybercab coming off the production line, to which Elon replied, "Gonna happen." And here we go, just a little bit of an update on this news. So you know me, wanting clarity to be specific, I quoted Elon and asked, to be clear, I said the bet was that Tesla would not sell a Cybercab to a customer for $30,000 or less before 2027. Are you saying that specifically is going to happen? And we scroll down a bit, and the man himself, Elon, said yes. So there you have it. This is now actually pretty huge news in my opinion. I will be honest, I was not expecting any customers to end up with Cybercabs in their hands this year. You guys know my expectations, given how slow I'm expecting the ramp to be. I expected 100% of Cybercabs deployed this year to be kept for the Robotaxi network. So believe in Elon's predictions or not, that's up to you, but the new expectation from the man is that a customer, meaning somebody like you or me, can own a Cybercab for $30K or less this year. Which means a few things. One, Elon is very bullish on the software getting where it needs to be. Maybe that 14.3 is the last big piece of the puzzle. Behind the scenes, what they're working on, things look very promising. Two, Elon's very confident that the regulations are going to catch up. Maybe not on a broad scale where anybody in 50 states can own one, but in enough places where we can actually have some customer deliveries. And three, that the production levels for the Cybercab will be enough to deploy some as robotaxis, but to still have some available to customers. Now, of course, Tesla could just sell one Cybercab to one customer and technically win the bet for publicity's sake. But for now, I am taking this as one of the most bullish statements on Tesla and autonomy that we have heard in recent memory. Because the gap from Tesla keeping Cybercabs in-house, controlling them, managing them, versus actually selling them to a customer with no wheels and pedals, that was a huge delta in my mind, and Elon is clearly planning to cross that bridge this year. And we will certainly talk more about this week. This video is already pretty long, but this does have big implications, meaning if somebody in Texas buys one of these Cybercabs, can they take it across the country? Because if there's no wheels and pedals, that's obviously unsupervised FSD roaming the country. So again, a lot more to come on this in the days ahead. And yes, it's true that Rains did some analysis on the January 2026 Robotaxi crash report. He said when the safety passenger was removed, the miles per intervention was around 200,000 miles. Now, this month, the miles per intervention is around 400,000 miles. And he's predicting Robotaxi in Austin will fully surpass human drivers by the end of Q1. But as we always say, guys, what does human driver actually mean? Because even if you agree it means miles between accidents, what classifies as an accident? Where are those miles being driven? What timelines and geographies are you referring to? So listen, not to belittle the analysis by Rains here, but just one point. In the fleet size growth, he has it up at 83. When we just covered earlier in the video, the Robotaxi tracker that should be pretty solid accuracy-wise for Austin is likely somewhere in the 40s for actual active vehicles. And further, this data excludes stationary and parking lot incidents, which, by the way, are a majority of all of these incidents reported. So of course, if you remove the majority of those incidents, the safety data and the exponentials and the predicted miles per incident, all of that data is going to look much better. So I think there's a natural reaction for everybody to ooh and ah when they see some pretty looking charts and tables, thinking that it must be official. But to me, I'm just not even close to thinking data like this is official. I went ahead and pulled the CSV file for January data. You can all do this as well. We have 5 new incidents reported for Tesla. All of them were in Austin. 2 of the 5 were in a parking lot. The other 3 were on a street. And the 5 things involved in these incidents: a fixed object, a bus, another fixed object, a pole or a tree, and a heavy truck. The highest injury severity alleged is just property damage, no injuries reported. And remember, these do not say who is at fault. The last one, it says the Tesla car was parked. Incident 1, the Tesla was proceeding straight, then it was stopped. Incident 3, it was backing up. Same with incident 4. And incident 5, it was proceeding straight. In none of these incidents did an airbag deploy. None of these Tesla vehicles were towed. And the speed of the incidents, 17 miles an hour, 0, 2, 1, and 4. So as we've talked about, these are still very minor incidents, and we do not know who actually was at fault. And I do applaud people trying to make sense of the very limited information and data that we have. But to treat something like this as authoritative because we have some charts and it's bullish in nature, in my opinion, is just not a wise decision. Tesla stock closed the day at $410.63, down 1.63%, while the NDX was down 0.13%. The volume was 1% below the average. Don't forget, if you've been getting more scam calls and phishing attempts, it could make a lot of sense for you to check out Delete Me, save that 20%, and protect your family. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.